Look closely at my face in this soft light of the fading day. These deep wrinkles you see are not just the inevitable traces of decades lived. They are a complex, tangled map of a life lived at breakneck speed, but to my great regret, almost always in the wrong direction. I am now 80 years old. I have reached that lonely shore where the tide of time only recedes, exposing the rocks and never returns. And now, sitting in the ringing silence of my house on top of Rush Hill, a house that has become unbearably large and empty for one woman, I realize one fundamental thing with frightening clarity. All my life, I have been a brilliant architect of other people's futures, but I have completely forgotten to build the foundation for my own present. I made a mistake. A huge, devastating, irreparable mistake that 99% of you are making today, as you rush to button your coats and run to your glass towers. You live under the dangerous illusion that you have eternity ahead of you. You firmly believe that your real life will begin tomorrow. As soon as you pay off your last mortgage payment, as soon as your children graduate from college, as soon as you finally retire and receive your gold watch. I am here to whisper the truth to you while you can still hear it. The finish line you are racing toward, breathless, is just a mirage in the desert of your ambitions. I have crossed it, and believe me, there is nothing there but cold drafts and the ghosts of unfulfilled dreams. Today I am breaking my long silence. I will tell you exactly where I took a wrong turn, so that when you turn 80, you won't have to sit in my place, staring at an empty road and feeling the same icy emptiness that is now tearing me apart from within. Please, I beg you, stop and listen. Don't repeat my path to nowhere. My most fatal mistake took root when I was barely 30. At the time, I called it high ambition and female strength in a man's world. But today, looking back, I realized that it wasn't strength. It was an exhausting disease of the spirit. I was never present in the room I was in. My mind was always 2 steps ahead, in the next quarter, in the next project. I always lived for something new, something better. I remember saying to my husband, looking away from his tired face, "David, just 2 more years of these long hours at the office, a couple more tenders won, and we'll finally drop everything and go on that trip around Europe we've been dreaming of." I told my daughter, whose eyes were full of hope, "Sweetie, Mommy can't go to your game today. I have to hand in some drawings, but I promise. Next summer we'll spend every single day together." I was a great architect of a grand future, but I remained a complete stranger to the present. I treated my days as cheap currency that could be endlessly exchanged for an illusory tomorrow that seemed to me a guaranteed prize. I traded the silvery laughter of my children for a prestigious position on my business card. I traded the living warmth of my husband's bed for the cold, dead light of a desk lamp at midnight. What I didn't understand then was that life is not a building that can be completed and finally inhabited. Life is the process of laying bricks, the smell of fresh paint, the movement of the hand. By the time I finally reached the tomorrow, for which I had sacrificed my best years, the people with whom I so desperately wanted to share it were long gone. My children had grown up and created their own worlds, in which there was only an honorable but cold place left for me. My husband got used to my eternal absence and learned to be silent. I built a magnificent palace, but I am the only one who lives in it among the echoes. Never trade your living now for a dead future. The next one may simply not come. And even if it does, it will never be worth the exorbitant price you paid for it with your loneliness. In San Francisco, as in all of America, we are taught from birth to believe in a destructive idea. Your value as a person is inextricably linked to your zip code and the brand of car parked in your driveway. And I, a woman with a sharp mind and an education in architecture, fell for this hook, line, and sinker just as easily as everyone else. I firmly believed that providing for my family meant showering them with expensive things, turning our home into a furniture showroom. I wanted to have the most immaculate lawn in the neighborhood, the latest Cadillac in the garage, and the most prestigious membership in a country club where cocktails were served to people whose names I didn't even want to remember. I spent 40 years of my life endlessly serving things that could never love me back. I spent my precious weekends giving instructions to gardeners and choosing the perfect curtains, Instead of just spreading an old blanket on the grass and lying on it with my daughter, looking at the clouds, I worked overtime until my eyes were bloodshot to buy a bigger house. A house that ended up being nothing more than a huge warehouse for furniture we didn't need and tableware we never ate from. Now, at 80, I look around these rooms and all these things seem like lead to me. They don't keep me warm at night, they don't tell stories. When my children occasionally visit, they don't look at my collections of rare porcelain or designer suits gathering dust in the closet. They don't need my inheritance in the form of antiques. They needed my time 20 years ago. They needed a living person, a mother who could laugh and listen, not a walking checkbook. I realized too late that true legacy is not the things you leave people in your will, but the light you leave inside them. If you are currently killing yourself at work to buy gifts for people who really just want your presence, for heaven's sake, stop. Throw away the advertising catalogs. Sell your extra car if that's the only way to get your time back, while you still have a shred of health left to taste that freedom. If you are 40 or 50 now and feel completely invulnerable, if you think your body's reserves of strength are endless, stop and listen to me. I treated my body like a rental car that I had no intention of returning to the dealership. I exploited it to the point of exhaustion. I systematically deprived myself of sleep for the sake of important meetings. I ate fast food on the run to cope with the tremendous stress and washed it down with liters of caffeine. And I lied to myself as skillfully as I lied to my clients. I said, I'll definitely get in shape as soon as life slows down a bit, as soon as this project is completed. But I'll let you in on a secret. Life doesn't slow down, doesn't give you a break, just breaks down in an instant. Today, at 80 years old, I feel the most bitter kind of regret. I now have all the wisdom in the world to appreciate the beauty of travel, and enough money in my account to buy a first-class ticket to anywhere on the planet. But I no longer have knees that can withstand a walk through Rome, or a heart that can handle a flight across the ocean. I have become a prisoner in the body I neglected for decades. I spent all my physical health accumulating illusory wealth, and now I am spending that very wealth trying to buy back at least the pitiful remnants of my health from doctors and pharmacies. It is the worst deal in human history. Don't wait for your first heart attack to start walking in the evenings. Don't wait for a frightening diagnosis in the doctor's office to finally allow yourself to just breathe. Your body is the only home you actually live in from your first breath to your last. If you let its walls crumble while you're too busy building your financial empire, you'll simply have nowhere to stay when winter inevitably comes into your life. There is a special, incomparable kind of pain that overtakes you when you realize that you are the last survivor in your circle. It's not just loneliness. It's the deafening silence of words left unsaid. I was a strong woman, the steel lady of my generation, one of those who broke through the glass ceilings in San Francisco's architectural firms. I was proud of my restraint and the fact that I never engaged in sentimental nonsense. I sincerely believed that my husband David knew how much I loved him, simply because I paid the bills on time, chose the best schools for our daughter, and maintained our status. I kept my heart in an armored safe, believing that cold detachment was a sign of professionalism and inner strength. But today, at 80 years old, I realized that my silence was not strength. It was theft. It methodically robbed my relationships, depriving them of oxygen. I have accumulated so much tenderness, so many words of gratitude and recognition that I want to say to people who have long been lying in their graves. I want to shout to my father that I finally understand his severity. I want to tell my best friend, whom I ignored for the sake of my career, that she was the only person who saw me for who I really was. I want one more, just one more chance to whisper to David that he was the only meaning of my long journey. Don't leave your feelings implied. Don't make my mistake of thinking that people feel everything anyway. Pride is an icy and endlessly boring companion in an old woman's bed. If you love someone, tell them until they get tired of hearing it. If you admire someone, write them a letter right now. Because the day will inevitably come when you have an ocean of words in your chest, but they no longer have ears to hear you. I spent at least 30 years of my life in voluntary slavery, worrying about what they would think. What would my colleagues think if I admitted my fatigue? What would my neighbors in Rush Hill say if my lawn didn't look like a page out of a magazine? What would my parents think if I chose a different path? And what would high society say if I allowed myself to show doubt or weakness? I lived according to someone else's schedule, dancing to a tune written by people who didn't really care about me at all. And here's the cruel, cynical truth that you only learn when you're 80. They don't care. They never cared. Most of the people I tried so desperately to impress at 40 are long dead. And the few who are still alive are too preoccupied with their own illnesses, fears, and regrets to spend even a second thinking about my life. I wasted a tremendous amount of energy on behaving properly and living up to my status when I should have been reckless, alive, and real. I should have dropped everything and opened that tiny workshop in Tuscany that I dreamed of in my youth. I should have moved to a cottage on the coast and walked barefoot on the sand. I should have put on the brightest, most provocative dress and danced a silly dance right in the square, laughing in the faces of passers-by. At 80, you suddenly realize that the only opinion that matters is the one you see in your own eyes in the mirror at 2 in the morning. Live for your soul, for your secret desires, not for the ghosts of those around you, who will disappear as soon as the lights go out. I am 80 years old. I sit in a living room furnished with the latest in designer art from 40 years ago. My house is filled with expensive status symbol furniture, every curve of which once seemed like an achievement to me, but today it is dead and empty. My bank account is full of numbers that could buy an entire city, but there is not a single event in my calendar for the coming month that would make my heart beat even a beat faster. I made the worst mistake a person can make. I lived my life as if it were a race, a marathon in which I had to come in first and take the cup. I ran past sunrises, thinking about tomorrow's planning meetings. I swallowed exquisite dinners without tasting them because my head was filled with endless calculations of profit. I saw people as steps on a ladder leading to a summit that doesn't actually exist. And now, standing on this imaginary peak, I see that life is not a competition at all. It is not a race for survival or a battle for resources. Life is a song. A simple, quiet, incredibly beautiful song that you just had to hear and, gathering your courage, sing along with everyone else, without fear of being out of tune. Look at your life right now while you can still hear my voice and while your blood is still warm. Stop for a moment. If you feel like you're running too fast, slow down. If you realize that you are working yourself to exhaustion for things that will become trash tomorrow, drop everything and go home to those who are waiting for your warmth, not your salary. If you have been carrying a heavy grudge for years like a bag of stones, let it go right here. It weighs too much on your soul. Don't wait until I'm 80 to realize that the little things, the smell of freshly brewed tea, the warmth of a loved one's hand, the sound of the wind in the leaves, were the only real things in this world. Don't wait for the deafening silence of empty rooms to regret not making more noise, arguing more, and laughing louder when the house was full of life. Live today. Not tomorrow, not after you pay off your loans, and not after you retire. Live now, because the hands of your clock are not moving toward your success. They are relentlessly counting down the seconds to your end. Death is not something that will happen to others someday. It is the only ending that is guaranteed for each of us. And your main task is to make sure that by the time you cross that line, you have memories in your soul that will warm you like an old fireplace on a winter night, not icy regrets that will keep you awake in your final hours. I spent my life building structures of concrete and glass, but I neglected to build bridges to the hearts of those who were dear to me. Now I know that true wealth is measured not by the size of your home, but by the number of people who will smile sincerely when they remember your name. I am old Eleanor, an architect who learned to appreciate the moment only when the moments were almost over. If my voice, coming from this quiet room in San Francisco, makes even one of you turn off your computer an hour early tonight to simply hug your child or call an old friend, then my whole life, full of mistakes and vanity, was not in vain. It means I was able to pass on a piece of my belated wisdom to you. I am leaving the stage, but you are still in the midst of your performance. Make it lively. Make it loud. Make it your own. Thank you for listening to an old woman's confession. These were my most honest words. If this story resonated with you or made you take a fresh look at your priorities, please subscribe to our channel. Here we share stories that help you not get lost in the race and find your way to your true self. Like this video so that the algorithms can help spread this warning to thousands of other women who are currently burning themselves out at work, forgetting about their lives. Your like is a chance for someone else to stop and save their soul. And be sure to write in the comments, what are you going to change in your schedule or in your heart today? What important business will you put off for the sake of simple human happiness? I read every word you write, and your answers are what fill my empty house with meaning. Share this video with your friends and loved ones. Sometimes one story like this can replace years of psychotherapy and save relationships that have cracked due to the constant rush. May God bless you. Live today, love now, and breathe deeply. Life is beautiful when it is real.